Are you looking to gear up with some unique designs featuring your favorite teams, players, sayings, or movie references? Or are you trying to represent the breakdown in your hometown? Well, now you can get some of the coolest, most comfortable gear all while supporting local artists with T Republic. T Republic is an internet store featuring tons of shirts designed that can put you on different types of t-shirts, hoodies, three-quarter sleeves, or even swag out your dog in the new dog tee. Use our URL bit.ly/the breakdown store. That's the BRKDWN store. Use that so they know we sent you. All sales benefit the creating artists, and if you use our link, we get a small portion of the profit. That's bit.ly/the breakdown store. Check it out today. What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. And I got a special show today with the special guest, my guest, Emmy Award winner, Tommy Dee, who's been evaluating scouting, basketball and scouting for over 10 plus years. Tommy, what's going on, my man?
Everything's good under the circumstances, Chris. Hope you guys are doing safe. Everybody's safe, and just great to be here with you.
Yes. Thank you again for coming on. So just tell me a little bit how you've been dealing with everything with the no sports and dealing with all this craziness that's going on in the world right now.
It's been hard, but I feel like MSG's done a really good job, and obviously ESPN last night with the Michael Jordan documentary. The distractions are really important. During the right times, right? So you got to make sure you take care of your responsibilities. You got to make sure that you continue to have empathy for your fellow, people in society, and do the right thing. Listen to the leader. So that's what I've been trying to do. I'm just listening every day, trying to get as much information as I can. That's good. Deciphering the good information from the bad, and then distracting myself, and maintaining responsibilities, at the end of the day. So, that's what we will always do and what we continue to do. And now I think it's more important than ever.
Yes.
I think, as it relates to basketball, um, that's a small portion of the distraction, but at least it's a big part of it, at least for those who have had it such a big part of their life.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most important part is making sure you get all the information, you get the right information, because a lot of people have been getting a lot of bad information about all this and stuff, but making sure you get the right information, take the right safety precautions. I know for myself, I work in a construction site, so I'm usually around a lot of people, so I know I was kind of weary of going back to work and stuff. But since they cut down a lot of construction, I feel a lot of ease, a little better about my surroundings. So this all this is just craziness, but hopefully with time we'll get back to normalcy. But just I'm praying for everyone who's been affected with this, and shout out to all the workers who have done a marvelous job handling the situation.
No, and it's a great point. And where you get the information from has never been more difficult.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is really frustrating, and something that, from a day-to-day perspective, I struggle with.
Mm.
I think um, it's important to not be reactionary. I think it's important to um, just continue to listen to the leaders, and look at the numbers, but also, which is similar to basketball and the analytics, right?
Yeah.
It's the eye test plus the numbers, right? It's the eye test plus the math and the science. And I think if anybody if there's anybody leading the league, so to speak, or the country, it's Andrew Cuomo, in my opinion, and not to
Yeah.
get too political, but
Yeah. He's done a marvelous
he's
job. Really good job.
he's really put together listen, this is the info. This is the best data that we can capture, and take with it what you will.
Yeah.
And you know, hopefully everybody's governors are in a similar vein there. But most importantly, it's understanding all of that information, making the right decisions, which is to stay inside, or at least
Yeah.
make sure that you're doing everything that they're telling you to do. And then hopefully there's going to be the sports distraction, which we all love, and hopefully there's going to be some normalcy here sooner before later.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. But like you said, Cuomo's done a great job, especially with the amount of people in New York City, and to be able to control it the way he has with the information he's gotten, and to give us the right information. He's done a great job, and the numbers are going down. So hopefully that's a better sign for the future.
Agreed.
So, yeah. So obviously, with all this, it affected the NBA season. The NBA season came to a halt, and it's obviously, and then with the NBA, everything else kind of felt, every other sport kind of fell in line with postponing or canceling their stuff. With the NBA, do you see any chance that we're going to see a season, or maybe a playoff, or maybe a, a, a different version of the playoffs? How do you, if you had to guess how the NBA season would return, what kind of NBA would we see?
It's a great question, and it's based off of a guess, or an educated guess, and I appreciate that, because you talk to people around the league, and um, everybody who I've talked to, the first reaction is, well, let's get through this first wave, or let's get through this. If there's another wave after that, but the first wave is what everybody's focused on now, and that is, um, and this is a key thing, because it's not only just the teams that are not in the playoffs. Look at it this way: there are playoff teams who are trying to win a championship, and then there's non-playoff teams who are trying to draft. Remember, without finishing the rest of the season, you got to figure out what the draft order is, right? That's
Yeah.
foremost for the non-playoff teams. For the playoff teams, it's trying to win a title, and you've got this LeBron James guy
Never heard of him. Never heard of him before.
who's 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 having an amazing year in LA, and leading the league in assists at
Yeah.
10.4, I believe. Just having an incredible year, and then you throw this, ESPN throws this Jordan document in, so that's obviously LeBron Jordan stuff. So
Oh,
it just amps it up to the umpteenth degree.
yo, my goodness, the LeBron Jordan the debates just kept, it just got worse.
and I
This
and,
doc,
and I and I've been done with him for a long time.
yes,
That's the debate that is, but um, most importantly here is not LeBron, not legacy. It's health,
yeah,
and I think Adam Silver is doing the right thing and got in front of it for sure, to make sure that not only are the economics um, there, in terms of understanding people who need to get paid, and people, how the revenue gets generated, right?
yeah.
You just saw the news today or yesterday, where it was 25% of the player contract is going to have to be put into, in essence, an escrow, right? They're not getting paid. It's
Yeah.
not getting paid yet, which when you put those things out on social media, people get outraged, like, oh, people, they're not going to get paid. They can Players are going to get paid for what they're owed, for sure.
Yeah.
But of course, it's based off of a revenue share, which is what the league is all about. So I think that the league, if you were to ask me again, I think you did, do I believe that they're going to play this year? I do. I just don't know how, and
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to know that answer. But I do believe that there'll be some sort of playoff, um, based off of a lot of different factors, even if it means pushing the seasons back. See next year's 2020-21 season further back, maybe towards Christmas or New Year.
Yeah, and that was the next thing I was gonna ask. Do you think the next season it will be get pushed back to somebody? If you And I think it would if we are going to get any games, you would have to push back the for next season, push back next season because guys are going to need a training camp. They're going to need at least a
They're going to
few
need at
weeks
least,
to train. At
Chris,
least.
Chris, they're gonna need training camp for this playoffs.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything. And I go back to two things. I go back to, well, the biggest one is the 99-year lockout year.
Yes.
And that was a half a season. As a Knicks fan, you know that that was the year that they made the finals.
Yes.
It was a great run, and that was a great team that they were able to rebuild on the fly. Ewing got hurt. It was documented on MSG, was awesome, and I had a great trip down memory lane here over the last couple of days, and it was awesome. But during that time period, they didn't play until January, and they needed at least a month. So once they came to the CBA agreement, they needed 4 weeks to get everybody, back into shape
Hmm.
from a players' association standpoint, not an NBA, not an owner standpoint. You have to remember there's a great divide. The divide is, as long as they're under contract, there's no divide, right? As long as there's a CBA, there's no
Yeah.
divide. But there's the players and the owners and the organizations versus the players association.
Yeah.
So if you're LeBron James or if you're Chris Paul is okay. See, they're not. Oh, actually, they're in the playoff mix.
Yeah.
But
I think they're the fifth or sixth seed. I think
and,
they've had a good season.
and Chris Paul is now the
Yeah.
Players Association president. So now it comes down to, is this fair for the players to get thrown back into the mix that could be
Yeah.
risk? You got a lot of people who are in contract years.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I just don't think, and I figured Adam Silver can figure this out, but I also feel like there could be potential to just say, hey, listen, let's figure this out. Let's not risk any injury. Now it comes down to risk, right?
Yeah.
And be risk averse is something that I think everybody. You look at the concert industry and the entertainment industry. They're looking at 2021 potentially, but that's all based off of ticket sales, which is a whole
Yeah.
different. But yeah. So long-winded way of answering your question is it's complicated in the leagues because because of the players associations and potential playoff revenue, which I think is number one in terms of sort of this head-to-head need for both sides. Players need to get paid,
Mhm.
owners need to get paid. So it's something that we've
Yeah.
never seen before.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough. And I really going to worry about the injury aspect because I think this come if they do come back, I think there's going to be a lot of injuries, and especially if you're going to go right into a playoff, where this is obviously the playoffs trying to win a championship. Guys getting hurt is not going to be something that you want, especially for a lot of teams and for the play itself. So is that something they really think about and say that this might not be worthy of maybe losing LeBron or Anthony Davis or Giannis to injury and then, hurting their value down the line? Is that really worth it? Okay, or do we just shut it down and just start fresh once we get more information about, all this stuff, all this, the virus and all this, in October?
This
That's something that they have to really think about.
this comes down to the Players Association, and here's why. Anthony Davis is an unrestricted free
Yeah.
agent. Anthony Davis could very easily come back into the league and once the game starts, pull a hamstring
Hmm.
and be out for the playoffs and have no impact on the Lakers, championship run. And it leaves LeBron there, doing his thing, and they don't have a chance without Anthony Davis, as we both agree.
Yeah.
But to that would put pressure on Anthony Davis to maybe play more,
Yeah.
right? And put his future. And you just saw it last night with the Last Dance documentary. Scottie Pippen was under a contract that he signed,
Yeah.
um, but also knew he needed to get paid when he was due. And Anthony Davis here, 20 something years later, is due to get paid. And I don't, if I'm his agent, do you put him at risk to, you know, tear an Achilles or, pulling a hamstring is a minor injury, but like, there's a lot of thought that needs to go into that.
Yeah.
Uh, as it relates to your future going forward as a player. From a players association standpoint, they're not putting players at risk.
No. No.
That to me, the players association is, they're not agents and they're not owners and they're not teammates. They're about the players themselves specifically. And that to me, and as a group and as a union, um, there's, I just feel like Anthony Davis is clearly the top example of that. But look at the bottom. The bottom would be a guy who, just is trying to stay in the league. And if he pulls a hamstring or pulls a calf muscle because he's not fully there, to play at that level and doesn't get paid and gets cut the next year, that's
Hmm.
going to have ramifications. And, there's a lot of legalities associated with that, is my point. And I don't think people are really thinking about it that way because they just want to see basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, but we also want to see good basketball, and we want to see the best players too. So, it's, I don't think everyone should just be like, "Yeah, let's see the guys come back," But we got to know that the guys just can't go on the court and expect them to be like how the season was before. They need time, and then they're gonna have to prepare for like a regular training camp. So that's it's gonna be interesting. And also, I also think about Giannis and the Buck. I think the Bucks, like, let's say if there's no season, the Bucks are gonna be have a lot of pressure on them because Giannis is a free agent next season, and they're gonna try to do everything possible to try to keep him. So this season not happening could really affect. I really think it affects the Bucks out of everyone the most, because there could be a chance that he can, if they don't give him enough help, that he could be gone after next, and they can't. He's one of the faces of the league, and the face of the franchise, and if they lose him, that's devastating.
No, it's an amazing point, and something that I agree with for sure. Chris Middleton is at the top of his game. Eric Bledsoe's never played better.
No.
You've got Brooke Lopez, who's a guy who's on a very small contract, who leads the league and leads the world in contested shots and also is knocking down threes.
Yeah.
Uh, I think they can get exposed in the playoffs, but your point is well taken. They've done everything that they could do to surround Giannis with as much as they can, right? They brought in Corver. They have these really, really good pieces that are not in their prime. Bledsoe still is, I suppose. Middleton, sure. But other than that, their core is Giannis, and then
Yeah.
just like LeBron, just these other pieces, right? So, and Giannis is having the best year, and this is his support staff and guys around him are at the peak. But that doesn't mean that that's going to be the same thing, in November, December, January, February of next year.
Yeah.
So they are cruising in a way that we haven't seen much other than what we've seen from the Cavs last couple of years. Obviously, the Warriors. So yeah, it's well taken. They have gone all in on supporting Giannis, and
Mhm.
it could be the tightest window that we've seen, and we may not get a chance to see it because of what's going on right now.
Yeah, and that would be really unfortunate for them. If they can't find a way to keep him long term after next season. But I want to talk about though a certain New York team that hasn't had a lot of success of late, and of course it's we're going to talk about the New York Knicks. Just talk to me about how they've dealt with everything this year to date. Obviously Fizdale, what had got fired. Out, I think it was 4-18. His start was to the season, and then the transition to Mike Miller. Just talk about that transition and how the Knicks' outlook looks for their outlook for the season was to the point.
I mean, it's a good one. Going in, for sure there were expectations that by clearing cap space there was going to be more talent to start the year, and I think that when that didn't occur, then you know coaching part of it wasn't, in my opinion anyway. Um, it there was not enough coaching early on in the year to win
Not at
some
all.
games that they could possibly win.
Not at all.
Uh,
Yep, agree.
and so situationally, I think they did a really smart thing by Mike Miller was hired to be an assistant coach based off of his work with Westchester,
Yeah.
and is a very very smart basketball guy, and um, regardless of relationships from a coaching standpoint, you can build really good relationships if you put people in situations to succeed, and you can lose relationships based off of not putting people in situations to succeed. And I think Mike Miller did the former for sure, and I think Fizz fell short on the latter. I think he expected Dennis Smith Jr. to do more uh, based off of just getting minutes. I think he expected last year Moutier to do a lot, and he was okay, but those were his guys.
Yeah.
And Frank Ntilikina were not his guys, and Knox was his guy last year, and that's a conversation I think for maybe a not another day, but just a different scenario. I think with the ball, I think Fizz's understanding, and rightfully so, was get your play fast and get the ball in the hands of playmakers, and that didn't work.
No.
So they're 4-18. Um, Mike Miller has, in my opinion, really did an amazing job of being a great situation, not a great, but let's say a very good situational coach after timeouts. Um, making the right, not letting a 18-2 run happen,
Yeah.
cutting that down to an 8-0 run, and then coming back out of a timeout, getting the ball to Randall. Randall makes a basket, and it's 8-2.
No.
We know the game is about runs, and we know the game is about stopping runs. And I don't think Fizz did enough of that. And I think looking back on it, he would maybe admit that. But I don't know that to be true. What I would say is, to answer the question, after 4-18, you saw RJ step forward. You saw Frank Ntilikina, in my opinion, turn a corner.
Yeah.
You saw Robinson continue his growth, and the rest of it was remember, you didn't have Bullock, you didn't have Ellington necessarily, shot makers. So all of a sudden, when they were playing well, there was a lot of kickouts and stuff that was really positive, and who also could play on the defensive end. So Fizz didn't have that luxury because he didn't have Bullock and a couple of guys who were hurt. But they were playing really good basketball. That last game, everybody was really excited about that Houston game, right? I mean,
Yeah.
or at least that was was it Atlanta the last game, or Houston?
It was Atlanta. Yeah. Houston was the game before that. That's when the whole Spike Lee stuff happened.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother podcast you could do forever. That game alone with all the antics.
But the win at home against the Rockets was
Yes.
certainly a massive positive based off of, remember RJ finishing against
Yeah.
PJ Tucker at the end in the N1,
Yeah.
or it should have been an N1 anyway. But getting the ball in RJ's hands is one of the smarter things that Coach Miller was able to do, and that's, we'll just see what happens going forward. But I think that was the biggest thing: situational basketball, and just kind of honing the young guys to hey, this is how we want to play here.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And speaking of young guys, obviously, RJ, the rookie season, had some ups and downs, but was playing better of late. and Mitch has done a good job also. But the one guy, and we talked about this briefly on Twitter and stuff. But with Kevin Knox, obviously, he just didn't look the same this season. And had a obviously the rookie season was up, but he had moments where you saw, okay, this kid can be a really good NBA player. Run rookie of the month 1 month last season, and then
Early
yeah,
September.
yeah, and then this season he just didn't look right. And to me, it started from even the summer league. He just didn't look right with his game. And so, what do you think was the biggest? What was it? Was it the signing of Marcus Morris? Julius Randle. I know he talked about spacing and stuff. Just talk to me a little bit about Knox year one and Knox year two.
So I'm actually putting together a breakdown on this as we speak, and year one, yeah, I mean, there's and I talk about this a lot on Twitter, as you know. You don't just, from a player development standpoint, you don't just get better as a player by playing minutes, right? Sometimes you can get better as a player by not playing minutes.
Yeah.
And you saw this last night in the document again with Jordan documentary. They wanted to limit him to 7 minutes
Yeah.
a half, right? And part of it, people say, oh, part of it was the tank, but also bigger part of it to me was they wanted to see him bust out of it and show that he's the winner, like, and just show and just prove, who he was, and he did that, putting 63 on the Celtics. Yeah, they lost that game, but they had no business even being in that scenario based off of winning 30 games in the regular season. But the point being with Knox, he didn't show that bust out ability, right?
No.
And that I think that's troubling. But I also feel he has that ability when the ball is in his hands once he rebounds it. So what I've seen over the first 2 years is once he rebounds, he gets the ball in transition, he makes a play.
Yeah.
He dunks on people, he gets fouled, so it's about, who's going to be playing with him during that situation. And the next level to that is, all right, you don't get the fast break dunk or whatever, then it's Mitchell Robinson or whoever, Taj Gibson drag screen, then you're in top pick and roll, and then it's, then the game evolves. For me, I just don't feel like he has the right, it's not that he hasn't had the right coaches, but it's just been so hectic that for him, he just doesn't, I think he's sort of in this, I don't understand it mode. In his second, going into his third year, they don't really have to make a decision on him. I mean, it's a no-brainer decision for Leon Rose to come in and be like, yeah, we're going to opt him in, and he's going to be, part of it. And he has no leverage to opt out, right?
Yeah.
So he definitely in his third year will be on this team. So unless they can, there's a package that ultimately happens to bring in somebody else, and he's part of that. But from a pure talent perspective, I just think he took a breath. And I think Ntilikina took a breath last year too. And now it's about, enforcing the fact that, listen, you can't take breaths anymore. This is about staying in the league or not staying in the league. You've seen that. Look at Dennis Smith. Dennis Smith is on the verge of being out of the league.
Yeah.
Last year, Moutier is on the verge of being out of the league. And what happened? Moutier found a great spot in Utah. And that's kept him in the league for at least this past year. But do we know if he's going to be in the league in a year? Every year, new talent comes into this league.
Yes.
And you're out. Look at Gallinari. Gallinari has been in this league for 10, 11 years,
Yeah.
12 years. And he's a free agent. He's going to get paid again.
Yeah.
Evan Knox has that. Wilson Chandler's been in the league for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
What gets Kevin Knox to play here 10 or whatever, 10 more years is up to Kevin Knox. And believe me, the Knicks know what it takes for guys to play in the league for 12, 13, 14, 15 years. It's up to Knox to figure that out.
Yeah. because like you said, he has all the talent. I mean, it's there. It's just a matter of him putting it all together. I think it's you think it's just it's more of a mental thing than actual, his talent. It has to be. I think it's just more mental than that, right? Than
I
than,
don't
than
know. I don't know if it's mental. In my mind, and based on what I can tell you, know what I know. I mean, it's just more. You know, what does he want to do, right? Like, what are his goals, and those things for me, I can't answer. Only he can answer it,
yeah,
and if he wants to be great, he has the talent, and I mean, he can. He does have the top pick and roll ability. He has the ball handling ability.
mhm,
Defensively, you saw a little, there at the end there where he was um, starting to anticipate more and
yeah,
you know playing better on that side of the ball. But it's up to him, and I don't know the answer to that. But I would say that if he can start to think about and envision, where he sees himself, then the sky's the limit, and
yeah,
that's the uncertainty, right? Like
yeah,
you see the quotes from scouts, right? And I can tell you that their quotes are accurate, right? There's if you're an advanced scout who's coming in to look at the Knicks, which is where all these newspaper quotes are coming from, it's oh, I see this kid. I remember him in Kentucky. I've seen, you know, 300 other players here in the last couple weeks. What do you want me to tell you specifically about this kid? Well, I remember him 2 years ago, and here he is now, and it doesn't match up because he's just not the same player, and he hasn't advanced. Here's why,
yeah,
in their opinion, and that's not a educated really opinion because they've only seen him play one or two games. What I can tell you playing, and you can see this too, watching him play, however many games here, 140 games. Um, he has all the ability in the world. He has a beautiful jump shot. He's got a good
yes,
release. He's fluid. He's got good footwork. Um, I think he's ready to bust out next year in a way. But I would just love to see more fire, as many fans would. But I think he's being patient. I think he knows things that we don't know, and
mhm,
we'll just take it from there.
yeah, and I think I think we also forget that these guys are so young. I mean, what is Kevin Knox? Maybe he just probably just turned 21 or so.
20,
Yeah. So he's,
21.
yeah, he's a baby still. So I think we still have to have patience with these young guys, because, especially like Mitch is what Mitch didn't play the year before he got drafted. He went a whole year without drafting. So he's still figuring out his game too. So I just think, I know as Knicks fans, it's hard to be patient because it feels like, we've been in this rebuilding stage for 20 years, but at this point it's you got to be patient with some of these guys, and hopefully they can get it together and finally click. Obviously we're not going to see it right now, but maybe for next season we'll see these guys click.
Uh, for sure. And, if the question there is how is that going to happen? So, I mean, you look at RJ, um, to me, there are so many parallels. The kid's 19 years old, RJ Barrett, 19
Yeah.
years old. And what I love most about him, and what I've always loved most about him, number one, the production across the board. He can rebound, he can
Hmm.
get you in transition, he can pass. You saw a lot of the alley oop, lob Mitchell
Yeah.
Robinson stuff with Mitch, and um, that talent is there. His ability to finish on the break, both hands. Probably should have. Now, of course, he shot foul shots terribly this year, so
Yeah. Yeah.
can't complain. Can't complain about fouls if you miss free throws. That's
Yeah.
always one of the big things that I was taught, and I continue to teach when I coach. But you you can't moan about foul calls if you don't make free throws.
Exactly.
Um, his ability to get to the line is something that's going to continue to grow here over the next couple of years.
Yes.
Then it comes down to, will players gravitate towards him, and then how does that work, right?
Mhm.
This next pick coming in here, um, whoever that is RJ the guy? Do people believe in RJ? For me, he has all the qualities to be a Hall of Fame player
Yeah.
in a way that Porzingis did not have. Porzingis was not a leader. Porzingis was a follower. RJ's a
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah. RJ has that dog in him for sure.
And it's not necessarily about dog. It's about leadership. It's
Yeah.
about I'm following, and to in Porzingis's defense, you're following Melo, and
Yeah.
everybody's okay with that's fair. But when it gets thrust upon you, like, hey, there's an opportunity here for you to be that, then you don't step forward. RJ has that in him,
Yeah.
and to me, at 19, forget the advanced numbers, forget this rookie's better than this rookie. 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about RJ Barrett as one of the best players that's ever played in this league. In my opinion, I feel that way strongly because of all the things that he has. He
Yeah.
has so many skills. He can develop more skills, but he has this moxie. He has this confidence,
Yes.
and he's not afraid of this platform in this city. Um, he is built for this in every way that Porzingis was not. Um, Porzingis wanted to be who he is now. He wants to be with the Luka.
Yeah.
He wants not to carry the thing on his shoulders. RJ's a little different. And then if you pair him with the right big, and select who that is. Is it Towns? Is it, obviously it's harder to just make that happen on a whim, but
Yeah.
um, there are young players who are ready to sit and understand, hey, I want to play with that kid. He knows what he's doing. And
Mhm.
there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah. I mean, especially that Houston game, because in that Houston game, I remember he started off tremendous and then he cooled off a little bit. And then in the fourth quarter, especially late, he picked it up, and then you saw, he had PJ Tucker guarding him. PJ Tucker is one of the best, on-ball defenders in the league, and
Yeah.
he kind of bullied him to the hole. And I think that's one of the most impressive things I saw of him all year. That the fact that he bullied PJ. I mean, I think PJ Tucker was falling back. I think I recall he was falling back, and I'm like, that's PJ Tucker. This is a 6'6", 235, 40-pound dude who's
He wasn't
you know
trying to take a charge there.
yeah.
He was trying to
It was
body.
yeah.
Yeah, and RJ just deflected him. And think about all the times where RJ created that contact and didn't get called for an offensive foul, but also didn't get called for a foul.
Yeah.
Like he probably could have shot, if they played 60 something games, he probably could have shot 2-3 more free throws per game.
Yeah.
He could have shot 180 more free throws this year.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
for sure.
every time he goes to the basket, he looks like he got bumped and they didn't call it.
Yeah.
James Harden gets those calls, and
Yeah.
the other guys get those calls, and three, maybe even next year, but over the course of 2, 3, 4 more years, he's going to get those free foul calls, and of course he's got to make them.
Yes, that's he's got to make them.
5% or whatever from the line.
Yeah.
And he won't. But this year was him getting his sea legs under him. I say this all the time. It really is about the marathon legs, and he is so good, man. He is.
Yeah.
I'm happy. He's not. They're different players. Zion's a different player. John Morant's a different player.
Yeah.
This whole narrative, this woe is me. Oh, they only got RJ Barrett out of the deal. Last year, I said, as long as you get in the top 3, you're going to be good. And they are. They're going to be. They're going to be fine. Now it's about building around him, making him confident. He's the franchise. He's the face of the franchise. He does have that mentality, and you go from there.
Oh, yeah. So how would you approach the off season with him? Do you make him maybe, a primary ball handler, or do you look in the draft and try to find the point guard that works well with him? How would you go about that with RJ? Do you get a primary ball handler in the draft? It's a very deep, point guard, guard draft, or do you let RJ handle the rock more, like kind of like how they do with Luka in Dallas?
Luka can handle the ball in Dallas because he can shoot at a further range, and
Yeah.
RJ, that's just not what he does at this point. But everybody wants to make him out to be a small forward who's a baseline cutter, flex cutter, come off screen type of dude, which he can be.
Hmm.
But I want a point guard who could play off the ball. And when you saw with him, imagine Ntilikina, who just makes shots off the catch.
Yeah.
If every time Frank was open and he made shots, that's your perfect pair, right? And then, if he doesn't, if the defense comes out and they respect the jump shot, and then the guard's able to get to the rim, that's your perfect pair with RJ. And then Frank, I think, he could still be that player,
Hmm.
but he's also part of that rotation, and that's another awesome dynamic. Obviously, Dennis Smith Jr. is not a pair with, and that skilled type player is not a pair with RJ.
No.
Um, Trier, no. What you want is someone who's able to play make. RJ is going to get his touches. So when he's not on the floor, then what you want is the guard who's going to be able to make plays. So there's a plethora of guards in this upcoming draft. Um, you know, Cole Anthony comes to mind for sure because I've seen him the most. Killian Hayes, everybody's pumping him up. I mean, everybody's an expert players that they watch on YouTube these days, right? I mean, um, to me, I'm way more confident in players that I've seen live,
Yeah.
and two of those players are Cole Anthony and Obi Toppin.
That's my guy. That's my guy, Obi Toppin. That's my number one guy.
If you were trying to put somebody into a scenario where perfect pair for Mitch, perfect pair for RJ, and you don't have to make can bring impact and doesn't disrupt what you have, doesn't disrupt Kevin Knox development, doesn't disrupt at all. In fact, enhances Mitch Robinson's development. Perfect pair with RJ. Perfect pair with Ntilikina. I like Obi. Seen him, maybe there's a little region bias there
Yeah.
with Cole as well, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you can't go wrong. I don't think with that slot, right?
Yeah.
Either an off the ball capable guard, maybe not necessarily the best playmaker. LaMelo needs the ball,
Yeah.
pun intended.
He scares
but
me. He scares me a lot. I don't know how you feel about LaMelo, but he scares me a lot as a prospect.
I never seen him play live. The AAU stuff for me is important because the relationships. He has great relationships within a league, and I think from a PR standpoint, that's important. The I could always sniff out the gravitational pull for him to the Knicks, from the ESPNs of the world and all
Oh
that
yeah.
stuff. Like that to me, it's easy to deflect and ignore, because you have RJ and Mitch, but he has talent. I'm not saying he's not going to be a great player, and he probably will be gone. And I'm speculating this because we just don't know where the Knicks pick. But the scary part are two things: the inefficiency in scoring, the lack of defense,
Yes.
and the fact that the NBL, which is it's not a great league, and people have never heard of it before he got there. Many people, scouts have heard of it. But 5-23 in that league is not that's not a winning record. That would be the equivalent of he's a quarterback in a different country, and they were a losing team, but he has all these highlights.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's a lot of homework that needs to be done there that may not be done. So there's just way too many question marks there, and of course, imagine talking about him for 2.5 minutes or so, whatever it was, and not talking about LeVar.
Oh, that's just gonna be a
Another
media
thing.
circus if that were to happen. And we
Which is
don't
why
need Knicks don't
which is
need
why
that.
the media wants it.
Yeah, oh yeah. The ESPN, Fox Sports, they all would love that because it creates more content for them. But for the Knicks, we don't need any of that. They don't need any of that.
Absolutely.
But so
Not to
two
say
quick.
that, but that stirs the debate of whether you take. I can tell you this. I know from what I've seen from Cole Anthony. I've talked to a lot of people. Oh, the spot with Casey from who does an amazing job with Knicks Fan TV.
Yeah, tremendous job. Yeah,
He's the best. Everybody, oh, you're all in, you're all in. I'm not all in anywhere now.
yeah,
All I can tell you, all I can do is provide the best information that I know is the best
yeah,
information, and that's what I'm trying to do here. I know who Cole is as a player. As he was NBA ready at 17.
yeah,
You look at his numbers at Oak Hill. He was a great playmaker, a great passer. Kofi Cochran was his center, who was, I think, Big Ten Freshman of the Year, if not, and maybe first team All Big Ten. Really was part of turning around that Illinois program. Um, that's impact. That's making players better.
yeah.
So this idea that he doesn't make anybody better is laughable when you actually watch him and know what he's capable of.
Yeah, and especially he had a rough year at UNC, but that was because of injuries, and then didn't have the best of talent to help complement him this year. Because they had a rough season, but that wasn't all on him. I know a lot of people have really put their record. Oh, they were really bad this year, but that wasn't all on Cole Anthony. He had his injuries and stuff, and kind of had to force to be the guy of that team. So I don't think people should really put all that on Cole Anthony for UNC's lack of success. This season.
No, no question. I mean, it doesn't.
And I'm a
Uh,
Duke fan too, so that's tough for me to say. I love that they weren't good, but
no, they were not good. And he before he got hurt, they were actually playing really well, and they had some
yeah,
really bad injuries that weren't him. So yeah, you really have to go back and look. And, I mean, he's not. Um, he's tier one for me. Anybody who disagrees, is relying too heavy on this past year's analytics, which is a
yeah,
mistake, and not enough really good information. People can hide behind numbers, they can hide behind analytics, but there's more to it than that, and that's really bringing all the great information. Um, Obi's another one. Like Dayton, taking Dayton to the next level
yes, that's impressive.
is impressive, and it's not only impressive, um, it's him. He was the National Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Dayton. If you put Dayton on a film, and I told you it was Gonzaga, you
No.
wouldn't know the difference. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, some people would know the difference. They were playing at a really high level, and it was because of him and obviously the support group around him. But he was dynamic and bought in year over year over year. And those are the type of players you want in your program for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's crazy the fact that people actually look down that the fact that he's a sophomore. Like now we're in the days where if you're a sophomore, you're considered your ceiling's not high because you're a sophomore. I think that's kind of ludicrous because I mean, look at Morant. He was a sophomore coming out, and his the ceiling is through the roof for him. He could be one of the best players ever too. So I don't know why people are putting such an emphasis on the fact that he's a little older and he's coming out as a sophomore. I don't really get that.
Well, I think you're looking at the class and not the age. But I agree with your point on the ageism. The ageism is a problem. Um, you know, because of the contracts, and how many years you get a young player. So you get RJ at 18 years old for 4 or 5 years, so he's 23,
Yeah.
and you don't have to quote unquote pay them until they're a certain age. But you're going to pay them. Look at Robinson.
Yeah.
A steal in the second round, and you know they're going to ultimately going to have to pay him, and he's worth it, I believe,
Yeah.
based off of. Well, let's see what the deal looks like. But there's just way too much cap perfectionists on Twitter and in the media who think they know the first thing about it, and they don't. They've never been in the room. They've never done deals. They don't know agents like that. They don't know how actually, constructing these slots happen. Um, There's so many moving parts. The CBA is constantly in flux. It's just not as easy as so many people. And even look at the NFL. Like, as a Giants fan, everybody's talking about, oh, if Dave Gettleman doesn't move out of the 4th spot to pick an offensive lineman, he's failed. And, to get extra picks, how do you know that that's even an opportunity? How do you even know that that's an option? But of
Yeah.
course, there's no accountability on Twitter for people who think that way.
No, of course not.
Right. So what it's a useless exercise.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I feel like the Knicks, from a draft perspective, can't really go wrong based on this particular draft because there's no franchise changer. They can add to building along RJ, Knox, Ntilikina, Mitch, and Mufo. And that's a good thing. Plus, they have 2 more picks.
Yeah.
And we've seen Scott Perry do a great job with Mitch and Iggy. So they're going to be diligent here and getting 3 really good players here in the top 4.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I got two quick questions before I let you go. Who should be the next coach of this team, and do you see them possibly making a trade that can be game changer for them? Do you see any of that happening?
Second one first, I can see it happening if it's the right one that supports RJ. RJ and Mitch are off limits. So, if there's an opportunity to make a package deal that, puts anybody else in that scenario and the picks and future assets, that pairs them. I mean, think about what New Orleans did, right? They trade Anthony Davis. They get a whole bunch of young players, and then they're able to
You get
draft
the number 1 pick.
And
They
then,
really hit it with that trade. That trade is the perfect, like, it worked. That's one of the few trades where it works for both teams.
And those dominoes were not like they weren't dominoes. Like it was just a series of events that were luck that happened to work out in New Orleans' favor.
Yeah.
And they will be a 60-plus win team here for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like it's not going to be next year, but the year after that they'll be 50 plus, and then you'll see these support players wanting to surround Zion.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like that could be true with RJ. But as far as the trade standpoint, I think if someone becomes available, they'll think about it. And that's something that's in flux. And I think Leon Rose, who has built CAA to be, one of the powerhouses from an agency standpoint, he knows a good deal when he sees it.
Yeah.
And he has great relationships around the league. So does Scott Perry. So, the biggest knock with the Knicks was that Phil Jackson did not work hard on the relationship side of it. And that's true.
Yes.
So, they were able to quickly rebuild that based off of Scott's work. And, I think they'll reinforce that with hiring Leon Rose. But from a coaching standpoint, that's a good one. I would say, in my opinion, there's been a lot of talk about Tom Thibodeau. I've heard a lot of John Calipari. So I wouldn't venture to guess other than it's a very attractive job, and it can be more of an attractive job based off of the next move, right? So if they can bring in a player, if John Wall becomes available, does Cal want to coach John Wall? For sure he does.
Yeah, of course.
Not saying that would happen, but there are different scenarios that I think would Jeff Van Gundy would have coached here, based off of a bunch of factors for sure. Would Thibodeau want to coach under Jeff Van Gundy? I'm not sure about that. But it's a job that I think, does Jeff think that there's unfinished business here? Perhaps. Um, if you're putting me on the spot, I think for the time being, the coach is Mike Miller. How's that? and, and he deserves it because he's
He
done such
deserved.
a
Yeah, he did a great
uh,
job.
and he's got him competing, and he's doing a really good job from a player development standpoint. And I like Mike a lot. I've seen him. I live down the street from Westchester. I've watched them, scouted them. I know everything about what he's done. And he coached the triangle. He coached the modern triangle. He coached continuity. He coaches flex. He does everything. He's a really, really smart basketball guy, and the Knicks are lucky to have him.
Yeah. So let's it's going to be a very, very interesting, off season for the Knicks, and obviously with Leon Rose taking over, it's and his vision of what he wants to do. It's going to be fun to see what he has in store for the off season and for the draft. So looking forward to that. But Tommy, I appreciate you coming on. It was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on.
Chris, my pleasure, man. Keep up the great work, and you know where to get me. So anytime you need me, I'm here for you, bro.
Yes, yes. It's been fun doing this whole podcast stuff, and it was like I said, a pleasure for you reaching out and getting to talk to you a little bit on Twitter, as far as talking Knicks and stuff, and then to get you on. Like I said, once again, this was a pleasure. Hope to have you on again and continue the great work that you do, because you do such a great job too. That's why I'm such a fan of yours.
I appreciate it, man. Everybody stay safe out there, and hopefully we'll get to see basketball here real soon.
Yes, yes. So Tommy, where can people find your work and stuff?
Yeah, you could right now find me on Twitter, right, at Thomas CDEE. My Patreon page is at patreon.com/Tommy, TOMMYDEE.
Okay.
And my podcast is there, and laying low, doing a lot of reports, writing, watching a lot of tape, and preparing myself also for the draft as well, and just talking to a lot of people and getting a lot of really good information. So I'm here, brother. I'm out there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you again, Tommy, for coming on the show. Guys, thanks for all the support. Continue to listen to the podcast. It's available on all podcast platforms. I'm on social media, Off the Ball Podcast. Guys, take care. Be safe. Most importantly, be safe. Stay healthy. And take care, guys. Peace.